It's another edition of BS with Bob Schmidt, and this time I've got it's kind of funny. I worked with my next guest in two different places. I worked with him at the lacrosse center, and now I work with him every week in Ferryville, Wisconsin. It's my buddy David, and we're talking about homesteading. It's something that I did for a while after I got divorced. I lived at my cabin for a while, and my cabin didn't have water. And I figured out a way to live without having running water. I filled up gallon jugs, 5-gallon jugs. I bought one of the water machines and used that. I collected rainwater for my plants and for cleaning and stuff. And then I also built an outdoor shower with a gravity-fed outdoor shower and a water heater on demand using propane heat to heat up that, and then ended up getting a pump that was a solar-powered pump in order to pump the water so I could get a shower with more pressure. I did that for a couple of years. My buddy David, however, has been doing that for many years. David, hey, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me on the podcast. Tell me a little bit about your story. Tell me about how you got interested in homesteading.
It started when I was a kid, like many people. You feel like everything's crazy, and then you go out into the woods and you're like, oh, this place is awesome. I want to live here forever. Like Robinson Crusoe and Little House on the Prairie and all that. I think that's where the term homesteading really resonates, is the whole Little House on the Prairie idea of just go out west, young man, and find your place and do your own thing, freedom.
Did you actually start off as a homesteader, or did you work your way into that as a way of life?
No, but I grew up in Indianapolis, so just like anybody. Yeah, like I was saying, I fell in love with the woods, so you start learning about it and learning plants and birds and all that stuff, and that led me into camping and finding the most wild places you can find and all that.
So let's talk a little bit about wild places. What's the craziest place where you've stayed?
I suppose it's Big Winters. Back to Little House on the Prairie, is like Laura Ingalls Wilder talking about living in the big winter in the big woods, and snow 5 feet deep and temperatures 30 below and all that. Yep. And you can be comfortable.
Let's talk theory of homesteading. How does somebody go about doing it, or why would somebody jump to that opportunity to do that rather than live in a place where you have water when you turn it on, or where you have electricity when you plug something in, where you have, a flush toilet or a shower that you can use?
One thing I say when people like, you don't have running water, like you lived for many years, water runs just fine when I pour it over my head, So all these pumps and everything, it's like, okay, let's jump back a little bit to how I fell in love with the woods. And I think everybody kind of has that Robinson Crusoe dream, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know that. So I'm an Eagle Scout. I was a Boy Scout when I was a kid, and when my boys were little, I signed them up to Scouts, and it's funny, none of them really were interested in it, so we just kind of stopped doing it. They got into sports and did things like that. But as they got older, and now as adults, two of them have said to me that they wish that they had followed more on the Scout path than what they did, because of the opportunity that they could have had to learn how to do certain things, like like camping in the woods or staying somewhere and not really knowing what you're going to do, but learning how to live off the land. So it's kind of cool that they see that now. However, I was disappointed when they didn't want to do it when they were younger.
Well, here's the thing about homesteading, is it is really an undefined word. If you think about it, like, all of us are earthlings. We're born here on this earth. We're going to be in a place, just like any animal, and we're going to make it one way or another. So what we've got here is this civilization, and we think that homesteading and connecting to nature is something like outside of that, but really we're inside of it all the time. And anything you do is homesteading. Anything that's self-sufficient. I think that homesteading is the idea is that you're doing things for yourself so that you don't have to have the constrictions of being a slave to somebody else doing it for you.
So do you think that some people that are living in a city are homesteading if they're doing things on their own, like fixing their own water heater or fixing their car themselves? So is that what I kind of understand with your definition of homesteading?
Yeah, totally. And what are the most simple things that you can do for yourself that are easy? And the real trick, the real magic of homesteading, I believe, is that it's better than what somebody else is giving you. What you can do for yourself is going to be better. When you make your own bread, it tastes better. Hopefully. Right?
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right with the word hopefully, because sometimes, you can make your own bread and, man, this is terrible stuff.
So I want to do some name dropping here. One of the simplest things that you can do is probably take care of your own shit, your own human waste. So I'm going to name drop Humanure Composting by Joseph Jenkins. There's a lot of composting systems out there for human waste, but really, that book really just does it in a simple way that anybody can do.
One of the things that I used when I was living, I can't really say I was living off the grid because I did have electricity. I did have a nice shelter. The only thing I didn't have was water. But I did have an outhouse. When I first bought my property, it had an outhouse and I had a certificate for it that I could use it. And eventually I decided that I wanted to do something other than go in an outhouse. So I ended up buying I bought a Sunmar composting toilet.
Then they worked good for you, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it literally takes care of your shit. And it's funny to say something like that, but with the composting of it, I was able to use the end waste, and I put it around my trees, and my trees did amazing. They were supposed to be this big, and they ended up being this big in half the amount of time, just because they had the extra fertilizer, if you will. But from using that the waste.
And there's a term that he uses in the book called fecophobia, because we're so used to just flushing it down the toilet and it just disappears, right?
Right. And I think a lot of people don't know. I remember my dad told me once long ago, he said, that plumbers have actually saved more lives than doctors. And don't get me wrong, doctors are amazing, but having plumbing and having the ability to flush and not have to worry about it, honestly, is something that I'm glad that I have, and I'm assuming that most people have that joy and the love of being able to flush and be done.
You were talking about collecting rainwater and everything. So imagine, water's a precious resource, and then you're just spending gallons of water just to flush it away, and it actually makes a bigger problem than if you just take care of it.
What was the most unique thing that you came up with on your own in order to live your lifestyle?
I've been into all the homesteading stuff and read all the books I could find and everything. And I got out of college and traveled around a bit and went to farms and everything and tried to learn as much as I could. Kind of realized that you just have to do it yourself. So I ended up buying a piece of land up by Lake Superior and building a little straw bale cabin out in the marshes. And it was passive solar and had solar panels and a living roof. And, I just tried to do everything. And honestly, back to what we were talking about, the biggest thing of all the things that I tried, living in a straw bale cabin and collecting the sun and all this stuff, really just knowing how to take care of my own shit was probably the most profound, radical homesteading thing that I've ever done.
Well, it's funny that you just mentioned solar, because last night when we were talking at work, I mentioned something about having putting it in solar panels or doing solar, something like that. And you said you weren't sure if you wanted to do solar. So explain to me what you meant by that, and the fact that, you had solar and now you don't know if you'd really want to do it again.
I think you misunderstood. I mean, photovoltaics are awesome. Honestly, like if you're going to build a place, passive solar is one of the most powerful things, because you're going to have windows, right? Okay. First off, you're going to have a roof. So a roof, instead of building a well, why not collect the rain from your roof, right? What we were talking about. And then if you're going to have windows, why not place them in a way that they're going to, these cold January days where it's frigid cold outside but super sunny. If you've got like greenhouse windows, ta-da, like all of a sudden you could be, sunbathing in the middle of winter. And the plants love it too, right?
When you mentioned, for people that don't know, what does passive solar mean?
It's simply setting your windows so that the sun comes in. Basically, it's a greenhouse.
Giving yourself a greenhouse effect, or giving yourself a greenhouse in your home.
Why would you want to put a greenhouse in your home when you could have your home in a greenhouse?
I don't know, David. I'm interviewing you. I don't know how to answer that question.
It kind of answers itself. Like, are you trying to fit nature into your life, or are you trying to fit into nature?
I guess, you know what? That's actually a good question right there to ask yourself. Are you trying to do this for what reason? You had mentioned you went to college. What did you go to college for, and did you graduate?
Yep, I went to Northland College in Ashland, Wisconsin. It's a liberal arts environmental college. I was going to go to Purdue because I grew up in Indiana, and Purdue has a lot of, great things, cool things. Yeah, I mean, I could have done, when you jump off a cliff with a kite on your back? It's not skydiving.
Right.
But, they had all sorts of stuff. But so I went up there and just found a lot of like-minded people, studied biology, mostly because that was a degree that allowed me to take any of the electives that I wanted. So I did a lot of natural history and Native American studies courses. And yeah, I graduated, and a lot of good things I learned.
So are you able to use some of those things on a regular basis?
Oh, I think so. I mean, knowledge is something that you just have inside of you. It's kind of funny, like if somebody asks you, oh, are you a fisherman? Are you a hunter? Are you a gardener? Are you a farmer? And, it's not something that you do every day, but you know how to do it.
Oh, that's true. I guess I had not thought about that as a, RUA, because that's something that actually resonates, I think, with a lot of people, because a lot of people, well, I fish, or I hunt, or I like to do this, that, or the other thing, but this is what I do for a living. I'm not, that's not what defines me.
You can say you're a baker even though you bake bad bread.
I do wonder if, a lot of people may think that, it's like, I do those things, but that's not what defines me.
That's what I'm talking about. Homesteading is, we're all born here. You're all homesteading somewhere. You sleep somewhere at night. Even if you're homeless, you still do.
Does the term homesteading, does that define you, David?
I love the word stewardship. To be a steward, and it's kind of a archaic word, but I think is a real thing, like that you, by being there and doing the things that you do, it enables you, it gives you the freedom to take care of other things, the courage of kindness, right?
So how can we be a good steward to our land then? I mean, using that word, since you said that's a word that you really enjoy.
Like all the self-help books say, first you got to take care of you. So maybe that is what homesteading can give to people, as a way to, you take care of yourself and your own things, and then that gives you the freedom to put that love out there.
Well, I think a lot of people don't take care of themselves, and that's, I think that's one of the big things I think that's wrong with our world and wrong with our society, is that we don't take care of ourselves as well as we should. And that causes a lot of problems in people's lives.
And you got to have patience with yourself, and that is a big part of the homesteading journey, is that you're going to make mistakes and things are going to go wrong. And so if the heat goes out or whatever, put a blanket over you. You figure out how to take care by necessity, I suppose.
You think it's common sense that a lot of people are lacking?
I really don't. So how many people are on the world today? Like 8 billion or something incredible like that? It's a lot. And okay, so what is the world's greatest resource at this point in time? Is it gold? Is it oil? It's humans. It's people. And if everybody can homestead and everybody can become a steward, all the problems disappear.
But as well as I do, I mean, even from where we work, you look around and you look at some of the people that come in.
I love them all.
I don't think there's not a lot of people, David, that I think would be able to do just that.
It always amazes me when I meet somebody, and whether they're rich or poor or from this side or that side of town, it's like, I really think that they're good-hearted people and just want to love and be loved. I think that connecting with nature and being able to do some things for yourself is, very good.
So you'd mentioned connecting with nature. How do you suggest somebody that hasn't had the opportunity or the know-how to do that, how do you suggest that somebody goes out and does connect with nature?
So many things, but what pops into my mind is, so yesterday was Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. But some place was putting on a wildflower hike for Mother's Day, and just simple things like that. Just get out and go for a walk. I mean, everybody loves to look at water, and
sometimes it's just the simplest things of taking that first step and going out there and maybe, for us, for example, we have the ability to go not very far from where we're living and see the Mississippi River, which is amazing, or to look at some of the bluffs that are around, or to walk through and see trees, or to go pick morels, or to, there's a lot of opportunity around where we live that a lot of other people don't have as an opportunity.
Yeah, because morels are just there for the picking. I can't see them. They hide.
Exactly. Well, and this is the season for them. So I mean, that's the good thing.
Just finding those peaceful moments anywhere with anything. I mean, even petting your dog, is connected.
Yeah, I really think that a lot of times just taking time for ourselves and taking a deep breath and taking in the things that are around us helps us to be grounded and to, live our lives and enjoy our lives.
I suppose this is the time where I talk about Earthships by, I think, Michael Reynolds. He does these underground houses built with old tires so that you're building with recycled materials, and it's passive solar like we talked about. So it's most of the heating and cooling is done by the earth. He does a really good job about just talking about how all these things set you free. Then you don't have to pay somebody else to do it. And honestly, have you ever had the electricity go out? It sucks.
Absolutely it does. And the funny thing is that, like I said, like I mentioned, I've lived in a place where there's no water. I've camped a ton of times in my life, and you kind of get lulled into the sense of security of having, the lights go on when you flip on the lights, or the TV to work when you turn it on, or your phone to connect to a network when you want to make a phone call or text somebody or go on and look at Facebook or whatever it is that you do on your phone. And when that's not there, it feels like a super huge inconvenience. Yet there are times when people are just living, that's how they live. They don't have that stuff at their beck and call. And I think that we've become maybe soft in the years because of the fact that we have all that stuff as we're doing it, as we need it,
But if you think about it, we all work really, really hard to get that convenience. I believe that homesteading can actually, if it's going to work, it's not like going off and living in a cave and doing, having nothing. It's more about having those luxuries even more easily. And I'm not talking about not having a knife because, you can chip a rock and cut stuff. I'm talking about using all the materials and everything that we've got available to us and putting it together to just make things easier.
How do you want to be remembered, David?
Hot tubs and swimming pools, man. When you think of homesteading, you think of Laura Ingalls, Little House on the Prairie. And it is pretty, I think I chose this area a lot because of those books. She influenced me so much. But, when you think of homesteading, you should think of hot tubs and swimming pools and sitting by the fire, having all your plants and animals around you and all the time that you want to spend with your family and friends. And cottage industries, you don't have to be a farmer and grow crops to be a homesteader. There's anything you can think of, you can make in a small space.
Thanks so much for listening to the BS with Bob podcast. Basically, it's just me pulling up the metaphorical bar stool and chatting with everyone from entertainers to educators to business owners to marketing gurus. People who've done cool things, survived weird stuff, and have a good story to tell. Please like, subscribe, and share the podcast.